Hello, everybody. Welcome to what is going to be a horrifically boring booster session. But I've pre-recorded this one, and you'll see in the latest goofy poem I put together on our Instagram page that you can essentially use this in advance of doing this same booster session on the day. The reason I'm saying this is because it's got some stuff in it which it makes sense if you get a chance to actually revise it before you come into the exam on the day. Because if I ask you to do this or do this before you get the exam, but half an hour before, anything I'm telling you which you're like, well, I haven't prepared for that, you're not really going to have time. And I think that might actually stress you out even more, which I really want to avoid. So this session is going to go over a few of the things that we've already gone over with the paper one, because there's a lot of common ground, but also, more importantly, this is going to cover very, very specific stuff that comes up every year for paper two. Now, a lot of you came out of paper one a bit worried, a bit stressed, maybe because it's a tricky paper. You didn't finish the fourth eight marker. That's really normal, and paper one is always the tough one. It is absolutely always the tough one. Paper three is also tricky, but I'm going to talk about this another time when it comes to my third goofy poem, which I'm going to write for paper three. But paper three, your booklet that we've spent a long time putting together, really puts you at a huge advantage. So when it comes to paper three, I know this is the paper two booster prep, but when it comes to paper three, you really, really, really need to use the fact and the advantage that you do have very few exams to go by that time, so you can put in loads of hours into that paper three booklet to memorize lots of it. And your specific title and different types of data collection methods, all that stuff, and the discuss question as well. Now, the other thing I'm going to do just before I start this booster session is the fact you're here tells me that you've now got to the Jog Vlogs website. While you're here, I get no money from this. I'm not reaching anywhere near the number I'd need to get loads of money from this and retire, unfortunately. Please just utilize it for what it is. This is a free resource for you that a lot of hours has gone into deliberately to help you, particularly things like the eight markers and learning how to structure the eight markers really well. I've given you examples in the 8 markers made easy PowerPoint in Jog Vlogs. It is my most popular video by a long way for a good reason. It works and people use it to their advantage all the time. So just while you're on Jog Vlogs, have a little look for it, watch it. It will really help you. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remind you this at the end as well, and this is useful more just for the day when we actually do this before the session. Answer everything on this paper except the water resources management section. So in paper one, we said don't do the glaciated landscape section, and that was annoying because it was kind of in the middle of the paper somewhere. This one's easy because it's right at the end of the paper. So after you've done your 8-mark question on energy and resources, this topic, this next part, that'll follow that. You shouldn't have time to do it anyway. If you've timed it well, that 8 marker for energy should be the last 10 minutes you get in the exam anyway. So you should run out of time to even start trying to attempt this. But don't attempt it. You won't get any marks for it. It's no need. You don't need to. It's completely pointless. You will not get extra marks. Right. So as a reminder, 8 markers made easy is on Jog Vlogs. It does give you really good pointers for it. You will only have 2 types on this paper: assess and evaluate. Okay, I will very quickly run through what the 8 markers made easy talks about, but assess questions need 2 different aspects plus a conclusion. So you're looking for 3 paragraphs. Now, for example, if you're looking at Norwich and it says assess in changing cities, assess a city in the developed world, one way that they have tried to manage their city to be more sustainable, something like that. Then your first paragraph could be about public use scooters and bicycles, and you could say in Norwich they've got public use electric scooters. This is good because this is sustainable because it doesn't produce CO2. They're very, very cheap. There's lots of places people can get access to them on the outskirts of the city to go in really quickly. They're green. They don't produce CO2. Whatever. You can then tie in specific information about Norwich and say, they cost 40p per minute, or there's I don't know, 17,000 bikes. I mean, there's not, I've made that stat up, but you know what I mean. Then you have a second paragraph where you talk about another thing that Norwich do to be sustainable. They provide lots of green spaces. This is good for people's mental health. It provides them with good oxygen levels. It reduces pollution. It helps manage water, prevent flooding. In Norwich, Chapelfield Gardens is 17 acres. I mean, it's not. Again, I've made that up, but this is just a way of you getting those two paragraphs put together. You then have a conclusion, which tells me, out of public use bikes or green spaces, which one's the most important, the most significant, the best when it comes to managing Norwich sustainably. With evaluate, if you had that same question, but the word didn't say assess, it said evaluate, you would do the same. You'd say public use bicycles, scooters, electric scooters. You'd tell me an advantage. They're cheap. They cost 40p, whatever. And then you would give me a disadvantage. They can be dangerous. Road users don't look at them. The cycle lanes can be ignored by people. So you could give me any particular disadvantage or drawback to those things. Now, you don't need a conclusion for evaluate paragraphs or for evaluate 8 markers, because as long as you give me advantages and disadvantages in each paragraph, you're evaluating as you go. Where with assess, you only assess when you say which is the most significant, which is why it has to have a separate conclusion. But again, more detail on this with properly detailed examples and that structure I've mentioned outlined in bullet points for you on the 8 Markers Made Easy Jog Vlogs video. Please never leave them blank. Make sure if you struggle to understand it or answer it, pick out what you know from the question and then just write something about it. Just list strategies or list things, facts, figures that you might know, because it's not going to take you very long. You could end up getting 1 or 2 marks. To get level 1 marks, which is up to 3, you can write just stuff that's to do with the thing. It doesn't have to be in a good order, it doesn't have to be explained, it just has to be relevant to the question. So just chuck stuff in. 1 mark is better than no marks. That's logic. The development one, the second one in the paper, will be spagsed marked. So you will get marks for spelling, punctuation, grammar and using key terms. But if you follow my structure in the 8 Markers Made Easy PowerPoint, then you will be using paragraphs anyway. And you should have time, because you've drilled yourself in doing it well, to check your spelling afterwards as well, if in this particular question. We did this in the first one, so I'm not going to spend ages doing this. Explain means how or why something. So to get the full marks, you're going to need to say the word because or this means, and to extend or develop your answer. Now, I always use the example of the what, how, why method, because if you say what, if you have to explain one, you get 1 mark for identifying your point, and then 1 mark for saying this is because, or this leads to. For explain 1 for 3 marks, you have to extend it twice. And I'll show you what that would look like in a moment. And for explain 2 for 4 marks, it's just 2 of these. So you give 2 different points. For each point, you extend it once. So this is what I mean by the what, how, why method. If this was the question, explain 1 way destructive waves can increase coastal erosion. You tell me what destructive waves are. They're waves with a strong backwash. This can speed up erosion because sediment is removed and the beach is narrowed. If it was explain 1 for 3 marks, you could then extend this a bit further with a this leads to or which can. So if there's sediment removed from the beach and it's narrower, this means there is less distance between the sea and the cliffs, causing greater cliff erosion. Okay, that's just extending it a bit further, explaining it a bit more. Suggest questions are exactly the same, but they will have a resource that you must quote. So whatever your what is, it will be something you pick out a stat or a bit of data from the resource. Just like in the first one, there is maths. There is mean, mode, median, range. They should be easy. Just drill yourself in doing those. Percentage increase and decrease. This method. Most recent number minus older number. Divide by older number times 100. And the percentage of something is smallest figure divided by total figure times 100. again, work your way through these, practice them. If I'm going too quick on this PowerPoint, that's fine. You can pause it. That's the beauty of putting on a video for you. Completing graphs, again, standard advice here. Please check. If it's in the answer booklet, you probably have to complete it. Look for gaps. Make sure your bar, your plot is the same as the other bars or plots that are there already in terms of their width. Check the scale really carefully. If one little square means 2, but you think one little square means 1, you're not going to get the answer right. So check it. Make sure. For the data you do have, work out what it is. And then you can make sure that yours is accurate with a ruler and pencil. This comes up in this paper far more than in paper 1. I don't think I actually saw one of these in paper 1. So describing graphs, maps or tables. Really important, and it comes up a lot in development and resources topics. So we use the T method, the Mrs. Hunter T method. Firstly, decide the overall trend. That should be quite obvious. In a graph, it's probably the number going up or the number going down, or the thing increasing or decreasing. In a table, it's again the same. Are the scores or figures going up? Are they increasing or are they going down? In maps, it tends to be, is it uneven? Is it evenly spread? That sort of thing. Is it mostly in Africa? Is it mostly in Asia? Is it mostly in the Northern Hemisphere? Use compass directions for maps a lot. Then evidence. Quote me something from the data. So it will be a number. You know, in 1999, India's investment was $1 billion, whereas in 2009, it's $10 billion. This is an increase. You know, you've identified the increases, then you've given me stats using the graph or the data or whatever table you've got. Anomalies, they don't always have anomalies, and most of these questions aren't really out of 3. They're normally out of 2. But if you get one that's out of 3, maybe there's a bit in the data that doesn't quite fit the pattern. So maybe India's investment went from 1 billion to 10 billion, but maybe in halfway between that, in, I don't know, 2002, it actually went down. The investment decreased for whatever reason. It doesn't ask you for what reason, just identifying that it went down in the year 2002 will give you a mark for an anomaly. Okay, so use T if you need to describe a trend. Okay, this one comes up very often, and it can often be an 8 marker. Impact of rapid urbanization. So this is talking about Mexico City, because urbanization is something we look at in changing cities. It's very closely linked to development, because rapid development often leads to rapid urbanization. So you can find yourself getting confused between Mexico City and India, but this one should be about Mexico City. And make sure, if you want to answer this question, that you have at least 2 negative impacts of when cities grow fast. So they grow fast for a number of reasons, which is I'm going to talk about on the next slide. That also comes up a lot. But try and have 2 specific impacts that you can explain why they're a problem for people's quality of life or air pollution, that sort of stuff, in Mexico City. So think of the development of shanty towns. Think of the lack of water resources, the issues with waste disposal, the amount of jobs that they don't have, informal jobs being created. Think about those problems and then how they're a problem and why they're a problem. And maybe think about how Mexico City are trying to tackle those, because that could easily be a question as well. Definitions. These, again, I would strongly urge you, if you're going to do flashcards or you're going to learn any definitions, this page on this particular slide are the ones that you should learn. So put these, I don't know, it's probably about 20 on there, not even that. Put these 20 on some flashcards and just go over them until you know them, because some of these are going to come up. I would say 2 or 3 of these minimum, probably about 4 or 5, are going to come up. Okay, so you are guaranteeing between 6 and 10 marks just by knowing what's on this page, knowing what they mean. So in changing cities, you will definitely get one of urbanisation, suburbanisation, counter-urbanisation and re-urbanisation. Make sure you know the difference between all 4 of those. Urbanisation, the growth of towns and cities, the percentage growth of towns and cities. Suburbanisation, the movement of people from the inner city into the outer regions, which develops the suburbs. counter urbanization, just like Americans say counterclockwise. Counter urbanization is people moving out of the inner city, like the terraced houses, because they're a bit run down, outside the city. And then re-urbanization is trying to encourage people back into the inner city, maybe by regenerating those areas, making those shabby terraced houses a bit more bougie, and young professionals may be attracted to the city lifestyle. Deindustrialization, it might not be a definition question. It could be, because it has been, but equally there will be a question on deindustrialization somewhere. It will ask you maybe some of the causes of it. So globalization, transport developments, technological advancements, and outsourcing. All of those things are reasons why factories, industry close in places like Norwich. And then maybe think about the consequences of that in things like inequality. And knowing what site and situation mean, also very important. Site, specific place you built your place. So Norwich was built on flat, fertile land on the crossing point of the River Wensum. And your situation is what is around your settlement. I don't mean like fields. I mean, Norwich's situation is 100 miles northeast of London and 30 to 40 miles from the North Sea. And 80 miles east of Cambridge. That's the situation. So consider that and be specific for both Norwich and Mexico City. For development, your key terms are core and periphery. They don't always come up, but knowing that Mumbai is your core region and periphery regions like Bihar have less investment, worse roads, less job availability, worse Wi-Fi, and you get things like brain drain, for example. People move from Bihar to go to Mumbai for jobs and work. That is worthwhile remembering because that comes up regularly. HDI comes up every year, and I will talk to you about that a bit more in a minute. And GDP comes up every now and then. So that GDP, people confused by that, it's gross domestic product. Doesn't sound anything logical. It just means wealth. How much money or that country's services and brands and businesses are worth, or estimated to be worth. So that's one way we measure development. And definitions for resources and energy resources: renewable, non-renewable, biotic, abiotic, fracking, and carbon footprint. Pretty straightforward. Learn these 15, 20 or so definitions and you'll be golden. HDI then, every single paper it comes up. So it will come up. It's almost guaranteed. So please make sure you know what 3 factors go into calculating it. Life expectancy from birth, mean years of schooling, and gross national income. So you got the money, you've got your education, you got your healthcare, all put together tell you what your HDI score is. It's a way we measure development. Now, how we can improve HDI is really important. How do you improve life expectancy? You build more hospitals, employ more doctors. How do you improve mean years of schooling? You build more schools, employ more teachers, or make it compulsory, like you guys, to be in school up to the age of 18. Or, to how do you improve income? Increase minimum wage. That's simple. If you can do those things, you will improve your Human Development Index score. Reasons for rapid urbanisation. This is found in changing cities. We've just looked at how rapid urbanisation could create problems, but again, a simpler question, which always precedes it, is why? Why do some places grow rapidly? Well, because natural increase, more births than deaths, high birth rate, low death rate, and rural to urban migration. People moving from the countryside to the cities for better jobs, better employment opportunities, more higher pay, better access to healthcare, education. The opposite is true. If it says, what are the reasons for different rates of urbanisation? That's a common question. Well, you can say, well, some places will urbanise slower because they already urbanised, and they've got less natural increase. Birth rates are low, but death rates are low. But because they're both low, you don't get a huge amount of natural increase. And actually, you've got more counter-urbanisation in wealthier countries because people have got Wi-Fi and they've got cars. They don't need to live in the city centre to be able to access services. So that's the difference between the rates of urbanisation in developing and developed countries. Another thing that confuses people in the development topic is all these acronyms. You get HDI, you get GDP, you get GNI, and you get FDI and TNC and aid. Now, really, FDI and TNCs, put them together, foreign direct investment, that means lots of money being invested, normally by big companies, transnational corporations like Coca-Cola, in countries like India. So what Coca-Cola might do is they might spend loads of money building a factory and roads and developing Wi-Fi, because they can then exploit the fact that India's population can make their products cheaper. And then they make loads of money because they can just reduce their costs. Now, India benefit because they've spent no money building roads and Wi-Fi and creating jobs so people get an income and pay tax. They've done nothing to fund that. Other countries have funded it for them and they get benefits. But these companies get something out of it. They get an investment. It's an investment. They spend money to do that so they can make billions in profits. They could turn around and just leave any time. Aid is money for nothing most of the time. So that will be often given by charities. Things like Oxfam is a bad example because the Catholic Church are the richest charity on the planet. But Water Aid is a good example of a company that can provide you maybe small scale solutions. It'll help a village, but it's not the Three Gorges Dam. It's going to provide a village with fresh water. The Three Gorges Dam would be a foreign direct investment, large scale project, which probably is making some countries and other businesses quite a bit of money. Okay, so be aware of the difference between those two. Regularly, these come up as biggish questions. Also, a real banker always comes up. So you can get marks here guaranteed. Knowing positives and negatives of different energy types. So what I would say is, for each of these four things, make sure you know a positive and a negative. Ideally two, but one should be enough of each of them. So wind, no CO2 is produced. It's free and renewable. However, it can disrupt migrating birds and it's not popular and the wind doesn't always blow, so it's not reliable. Coal, it produces masses of energy for a very low cost. That can lower bills. But it's very dangerous to mine and it can produce CO2, which harms the environment. Fracking or hydraulic fracturing. This is useful because it can keep energy bills low, because it can tap into 200 years worth of energy we've got locked in our rocks, but it's highly unpopular and it can create earth tremors and contaminate water sources. And then uranium, which is what they will say for nuclear energy. They will not say nuclear, they will say uranium because it's the energy source, not the energy reaction. So uranium produces a lot of energy. It can produce energy very cheaply after you've set it up, but it produces loads of waste, and to set it up costs you billions. I think Hinkley Point C is probably the most expensive energy project anywhere in the world at the moment. I might be wrong, but it's certainly the most expensive nuclear one that's going on, and that's in the UK. So it costs a lot of money. So again, guaranteed marks if you can give me an advantage or disadvantage of at least one of these. Now this one might seem wordy, but again, every year this comes up without fail. You will get a question about resource exploitation or the negative impacts on the environment of resource extraction. They will probably use this term in the question. Look out for it. Now, when we talk about resource extraction, think about three primary sector jobs: farming, fishing, mining. All right? So farming, fishing, mining, all of them involve taking resources out of the earth. Overfishing, over forestry, over lumberjacking. I don't know what I'm saying here. I'm tired. It's 11 o'clock. Or over farming land can be a real problem. Now, each of these, you can answer it in a really specific but very repeatable way to guarantee you getting 2-3 marks. So, overfishing is bad because it impacts the food chain, tick, and reduces biodiversity. You'll see this appearing a lot. Trawling the seabed destroys the habitat, removes prey fish, reduces biodiversity. Farming, too much farming or forestry, so both of these things are very similar. You can put them in the same bracket. you grow one type of crop or you grow one type of tree. So you plant the same crop, that creates a monoculture, that reduces biodiversity. You use pesticides to make sure you look after your one crop. That kills a range of plants, reduces biodiversity. You remove trees, I should say trees, not tress. That destroys habitats, reduces biodiversity. All of these things reduce biodiversity, and that really is the main negative impact that affects all of these. You will get one of these three. It might be a picture, it might be a map, whatever, a photo. But for each of them, if you just say, this reduces biodiversity, you'll get 1 mark. If you can say how it reduces biodiversity, you're going to get 2 or 3. And then finally, case studies. You don't get loads of marks for case studies. They will appear, and they will be good marks for, the top marks of the 8 markers, and maybe a 3-4 marker here or there. But equally, just so you're aware of which ones they are, and you'll get confused with Mexico City and India, because everyone does. Not everyone, but lots of people do every year. For changing cities, your developed case study is Norwich. Your developing case study is Mexico City. For development, you are looking at India. For resources and energy resource management, you are looking at Germany as your developed country. Energiewende, developing the Nordseeost wind farm and the Bavaria solar park. And you've got China as the developing case study with the Dabancheng wind farm, and there's the Delinga solar power plant, as well as the Three Gorges Dam. Okay, and then finally, just as a final reminder, do not answer the water resource management section. I'm just going to remind you again, you're on Jog Vlogs, the 8 markers made easy is there. For paper 3, there's obviously other stuff there as well, the discuss question to practice, but don't do that yet. Focus on using your booklets, the exam paper questions that are in there. Really work through those for paper 2. Do the things especially that I've pointed out that's coming up all the time on this particular paper. Do those, spend a long time doing them. Make sure, because you are going to guarantee yourself marks. And remember, once you've revised for this one and done this one, you're going to be really buzzing and really happy, because it's a great test and you're going to do well. And you've only then got paper 3 to do. And when it comes to paper 3, your booklet is your Bible. Please, please, please use your booklets, plus my discuss question Jog Vlogs. That will really, really help you. I'll do another goofy poem before that comes as well, so there's a bit of a reminder for you. But I hope this has been useful. And for now, I will say cheerio, and I'll see you on the day of your exam for this booster. Shorter but live. Right, okay.